Welcome to the In Love with PMDD podcast. I am your host, Dr. Rose, your PMDD relationship psychotraumatologist, and I help you stop the monthly PMDD breakups. PMDD is premenstrual dysphoric disorder. It is in approximately 1 in 5 women, and it makes you want to break up with your partner approximately 1 to 2 weeks before your period every single month. So as someone who has suffered with PMDD for over 18 years, I dedicated my doctorate practice to helping partners navigate those monthly PMDD breakups with everything from attachment styles, triggers, sensitivity to noise, sensitivity to touch, all of the things that you really struggle with when you're in PMDD. And I also dedicated my dissertation to a phenomenological study of the relationship experiences of partners of individuals who suffer with premenstrual dysphoric disorder. So I'm not just here to help the sufferer, the one who is suffering with PMDD. I am here for the partners as well. So if you need those private sessions, make sure you go to inlovewithpmdd.com and get those tools. So let's get into this week's PMDD trauma transformational tools that is going to help you stop the monthly breakups and stop the suffering and stress in your PMDD relationship. Let's get into it. Today, I am back on with Amy, and we are going to be talking about some of the frequently asked questions that I've gotten about dating and PMDD. We're going to continue this series, and we're just going to be talking about one of the I say there's a couple of them that are really popular that I normally get on my DMs or my emails or even with private clients. And that is, what kind of PMDD partner should I be looking for when I'm dating? What kind of characteristics should they have? What kind of qualities do they have that would make them a supportive PMDD partner? Because I think it's so much easier when you're dating, when you have like a moral compass, like you have like I don't want to say a checklist, but you have some qualities where you're like, okay, I have some things to look out for. And so I know for me, I've learned what I need in PMDD from past relationships. It's like trial and error, you know what I mean? And we were just talking before this about, be careful what you ask for, because you may think that you want something and then you get it and it's not really conducive to when you're in PMDD. Like I think a lot of times it is cyclical, whereas in your follicular phase, it can really be great for you. Like if you want certain characteristics that are like, if you want someone that's outgoing, that loves to travel, that is like on the fly, that's really flexible and adaptable and all these things, then that's great when you're in your follicular phase, when you may want to do all those things. But what happens when you get in your luteal phase and you kind of want to be a bit of a hermit? Like what if you want to have a day? Like say if you're on vacation, you're used to being on the go, but you just want to have one day of your vacation where you don't go out, where you don't explore. And then your partner is like, it's a problem for them. It's like, no, this is not you. Like, I'm with you because you want to go out and you want to party and you want to like explore and all these things. And you're like, well, I'm in PMDD and I'm suffering. I actually don't want to do that today, or maybe tomorrow, or maybe, for a full 14 days. Like, how do you get a partner that is flexible enough to be fluid through both, like all realms of your cycle? Like it's very, because they're not on a cycle. I've had exes tell me that like you're different in different parts of your cycle, but I'm the same all month long. I want the same thing from you. And a lot of them love follicular me. Like follicular Rose is fun. Like follicular Rose wants to go out and socialize and have couples, friends, and dates and stuff like that. And then luteal Rose may want to just, curl up in a ball, or like I like to do a lot of reading and writing. It's almost like a completely different persona, almost like I would have to date two separate people, which I'm like, where am I going to find that? It's like you're dating, I would have to date like an Oreo. Like I have to date two separate people that are like, oh, when I want to go like the middle part of the Oreo, when I want to go to the white part where there's like internal, that's like cool. But then when I want to go to like the dark side, I'm just like, I'm out there.
Oh, I love that. That's so, that's so funny. Yeah, I think when I really think about that, I really start thinking about the internals as well. I think we're all so different, even from the discussion we was having before, like we as people are different. But I think the fundamental essence is understanding
Mhm.
is a really important thing, and reliability. And I know, as when you're young, like they seem so boring, but as you get older and you're really like, I want commitment. I
Mhm.
want like it's life can be hard enough with PMDD and going through that healing. And I really do believe that you can find levels of healing within PMDD that are really, really high. Like I'm in late luteal now, and I am very consistent for the most part, but what you did say, like I'm very much like vibrant, want to go out and stuff when I'm in ovulation, whereas in luteal I am more like, oh, I just want to read, I want to be
Mhm.
introspective. And it is, finding the person who is able to accept you,
Mm.
and for you to also, I think a huge part of that really is also you accepting you, because when you accept like this is, and you can be forthcoming, like I can be like this and I can be like that. I think the majority of men, maybe not boys, but men are very aware that women fluctuate and that we
Mm.
have changes, and it is about rolling with the punches. Like most of the relationships that I've been in, or the guys that I've dated, are quite easygoing, introspective people anyway. Like, so that tends to be more of the thing that is okay, but it's the understanding and it's the communication. I think it's the deeper stuff, because I think when you can do them things, then the going out or the staying in and all of that stuff just kind of ebbs and flows anyway, because you love each other. So you can kind of mold into them things. But then deeper things, I think, is what we're really looking for: understanding, reliability, communication, emotional intelligence.
Yeah, I think my problem, and the thing that I've had in the past, is that I haven't really been attracted to people that were easygoing. I'm always on the go. I've been attracted to people that have like alpha males, really, like aggressive almost, but like I don't know. Like, if someone is like easy, and I realize having PMDD, that's actually somebody that I need, but it's not necessarily somebody that I've wanted. And so that's like that aha moment where it's like I'm not attracted to I wasn't attracted to people that were just like go with the flow, easy going, because I'm always like, hello, like what are we doing? Like I wanted someone to kind of take the lead or even just be, assertive. And then I realized, well, when I have someone that is assertive and all this, it seems like almost like too much for me. Like when I get into my luteal phase, I feel like I'm being dragged around, like I'm being demanded to be a certain way. And I think one of the things that you said is that when you said a boy to a man, is that you were saying like most men know that women operate on a cycle. And I think that's so underestimated. Like I didn't realize that that's something that I needed. Like I need someone that I don't have to explain, like and make an excuse for and feel like I'm less of a human because I'm operating on a cycle. Like I used to feel bad when I went into my luteal. I used to feel bad when I was on my menstrual because I would be like, oh, they want sex and I can't give them sex because I'm on my period. I would hate being on my period, not because I'm on my period, but because it means I can't meet my partner's needs in that way. And then I would hate when I would go into luteal and I would feel more internal because I would like, oh, my partner doesn't like this part of me. So like I feel bad of being in PMDD. I feel bad of being in luteal. So instead of embracing my luteal phase and seeing what it brings up for me, I was just waiting for it to be over. So imagine living like your life where like 3 weeks out of the month, you're waiting for it to be over because you know that you being in that state doesn't please your partner.
Yeah, and I think again that is where, you know, outside of the partner, that first step is self-acceptance. Like at this point in my life, I understand it like in the past, but at this point, if you don't like me because I want to sit and read for the day because I'm tired and I'm about to come on my period, then really, like really, that's the depth of our relationship. It's like, come on, like, but A huge part of that comes from the internal, because that's what you're saying. It's like, oh, I'm not able to please my partner, I'm not able to
Yeah.
do this. And it's like, well, you know, it's not your fault. You're not actively choosing to have a cycle. We are women and we have natural cycles, and we have to just we come into harmony with it. We accept it, and we love ourselves in that place. And this is a lot of when I speak to clients, this is a huge crux of healing
Hmm.
in general, is self-compassion and self-acceptance. Self-compassion normally has to come before self-acceptance, but really when you can come into that place where you accept, you stop resisting, and you find more levels of peace, and then you're able to find more communication in your relationship, because you're not trying to come at them from a place of, you have to hear me right now. You're able to
Yeah.
come at it from a place of like, this is where I'm at, and this is okay. And still, again, it really depends on, like, as you go on in relationships, like you're not going out as much. And it's so hard as well, because when you depending on the relationship, there are people, I'm an adventurous and sporty person, so I always want to be with someone who is particularly very sporty, because that is kind of where I'm at. And if
Hmm.
they're not, then you know there's probably a bit of things that we're going to struggle on, because of the lifestyle that I want to live. And
That's
even
that's that's interesting because I thought, okay, maybe I don't date someone that is as active as I am, and maybe I date the opposite. Maybe I date someone that has a light. So I dated someone from the UK, and very, very nice, respectful, very gentle, very passive, very go with the flow. And so my morning routine is to get up really early in the morning, go straight to working out. Like I'm literally like, I did a circadian rhythm like test, and like I'm like the wolf or whatever that gets up early in the morning. Like when the sun rises, I get up and things like that. And so this person was a bear. Like, so they were like pretty much, they literally, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it that they woke up at like 8:45. They didn't start their day to like even talk to people to like 11, like late morning. They would be like, "Oh, that's when I start my day." I couldn't wrap my head around that. I'm like, "You've lost the day. The day is gone." Like the day's gone, but then there were night owls too. So they stayed up really late. So it kind of balanced off as far as everything. But I was like, I remember initially we were dating and I was like, this is going to be a problem because I'm going to be up and I need you to be up. But then I was like, why do I need them to be up? Like I found so much peace in me being able to do my morning routine and not have to check in with someone and know that they're sleeping. And I just had my time. So by the time that they woke up, I was finished with my morning routine and it just kind of worked out. It balanced out. And so then that's when I was like, oh my gosh. So now I'm back to square one because I'm feeling like, I thought I wanted someone that mirrored me. I thought I wanted someone that was a mirror to me. But
mm,
instead, I realized that someone can be completely different, but still compliment me. And my mind was blown. I was like, oh my gosh, like now I don't know what to look for.
yeah, well, but I think because there's layers, isn't there? And I think that it still goes in, like, it's a preference for me because of the lifestyle that I live, and my career, and just many things. But it doesn't mean that they have to be someone who goes to the gym in the morning with me. It's more of just like the lifestyle that
Hmm.
I want to live. But I still think that underneath it really is like the emotional intelligence, the understanding, the reliability, because you know the hobbies and interests can be a bit different. It's nice to have similar hobbies, and it's nice to be able to do things together. But if you have that and you don't have understanding, and you don't
Yeah.
have emotional intelligence and communication, then really it amounts to nothing anyway. So it all kind of goes into that bottom bit. And I think a huge part of, because I think this was our next question, wasn't it? How do you know when you found that person? Which is
Yeah.
such a broad question, and I think a really challenging one to answer. But I think one of the things is how they actually make you feel, not how you feel about them, but how they make you feel. Like, do they make you feel secure in that they like you? Not if you have your own stuff to work on, your own triggers and stuff, that's a different thing. But in the
Yeah.
context of your relationship with them, how they're communicating, how they're messaging, how they are with you, not where they're taking you. Are they taking you to fancy restaurants and whatnot? Because that, again, that's just like, it's just materialist kind of. If
Mhm.
you want that, yeah, that's great. Don't get me wrong. Like, I like to be treated well, but fundamentally, I want to know and be sure this person likes me. I see it. They message me in a way that is doesn't make me question things. They're on
Yeah.
time. They value my time. Like, that's a huge, like, for myself, that's a huge thing. Do not, waste my time. Don't say you're going
Mhm.
to do something and then not do it. Don't message me 1 minute and then message me like the next day when we know that you're on your phone, because that's what I mean. Like,
Yeah.
this
So how do you
behavior of
know with the time thing? I want to just interrupt you for a second about the
yeah.
time thing. If someone is inconsistent with when they're messaging you in the dating, because I've heard this so often, how do you know
Mm,
if this is I I you don't like it. Obviously, I don't think anybody likes it when they're inconsistent with the
yeah.
messaging. But how do you know if you cut the person off and say, okay, this is not the person for me, or if you just be like, oh, that's just you make an excuse for them and just say, oh, that's how they are. Like I've had clients that say 1 minute they're messaging me daily, and then the next minute I don't hear from them for like 3 days, and I think that, we're not talking anymore. And then on the fourth day, they're like, good morning, and you're like, what? So like, do you mirror their communication style? Or because when you go, here's what happens. You go into PMDD and you're
Yeah.
like, you really, you can't hide it. Whatever you're feeling, you can't hide it in PMDD. So if you're irritated by the inconsistency in the communication, normally
Yeah.
this is when you can like, you've been holding it in during your follicular phase, maybe ovulation, all the things you may tend to lash out at the person because you're like, I've been like, why are you messaging me now? Like, I thought we were over. Like, all of these pent up feelings come out, and then you've
Yeah.
scared the person away, and then they feel bad about themselves because they feel like I'm the one that scared them away. But like, it's
Mm.
almost like who was in the wrong? Like, should you have said something initially when they were messaging you on an inconsistent basis? But then, how do you hold this person to a standard if you're just dating? You're not in a relationship, so they're not obligated to check in with you. Like that's not a requirement when you're dating.
Yeah. I think the first thing is, if someone is inconsistent all the time, then they're actually being consistent, because they're always like it. They're just a bad texter.
Yeah.
So that, like, I know it doesn't seem it, because it's like, well, they're so inconsistent, but they're consistently inconsistent.
Right.
So that is just who they are. And some people are like that. Some people are bad texters. Some people, I've dated guys like it, and honestly, it stresses me out. When they're like that, I don't want that. I don't want someone. Not saying I don't want to be texting someone 24/7. I'm too old for that. I don't want to be on my phone all the time. But I
Yeah.
want, let's be honest, in this day and age, most people are on their phones fairly regularly.
Hmm.
So if they're not texting you, within a certain time frame, then they're probably not that interested, is kind of what I would say, unless they're busy. But again, it goes to, if they're being inconsistent, but they're consistently inconsistent, and they're also communicating that, like, look, honey, I'm busy, I really like you, but I do, when I'm at work, my head's focused on work, then that's fine. Because again, it's communicating, isn't it? Like, if someone likes you, they will want to explain things to you, they will want to communicate that. And honestly, for myself, I think in that early phase, because I've definitely, in my PMDD, I've definitely, and in my triggers as well, because I've been very triggered and been through a lot with men. So I have in the past tarred men very quickly with the same brush and got into rages, and
Hmm.
and then the sad thing that kind of happens there is they were in the wrong, but then my guilt
Yes.
overtakes, and then I just want to profusely apologize. And that's where we need to stop ourselves in our tracks as
Yes.
women with these kind of emotional challenges, because actually they were in the wrong. It's just because of our lack of emotional regulation, we then put ourselves in a position where we act in a way that blows it kind of, maybe it's a two, and I'll actually explain one. Like, I met a guy before and he was meant to call me. Because I travel a lot, like I meet guys and then, people go off and stuff. And he was meant to call me at a certain time and he didn't. And I was really ill and I ended up in hospital. And I was so angry that I messaged him. I called him some big swear words, really big swear words, because I was just so angry. I was like, "All men do this today," like, and it was bad, And I felt so, because I was so triggered by it, and I was so ill as well. I had food poisoning and that as well. That it just blew out of proportion. And for such a long time after, I was like, I ruined it. I made it really bad. And actually now, like when I look back on it, it's like, no, I reacted when I should have just not
Yes.
done anything. And that's a huge part, that sometimes we actually just don't do anything when you're triggered. Do not respond. Like, that's the biggest. Do not react, because it's not a response, it's a reaction. Do not react. If you're in that very early dating phase and they're being really inconsistent and they're confusing you, just walk away or communicate it in a way that is actually, I'm here, I'm present. Like, if it's me, I'm Amy, I'm 30 years old right now. This doesn't make me feel good. I like this person. So I'm going to communicate. Look, honey, I like you. I feel like I'm a bit confused at kind of how you're texting me right now. Sometimes you're really there, sometimes you're not. If they come back and they're like, look, I'm really sorry, like work's been really busy, or I've had some family stuff, or blah blah blah, and you're like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. And then you see, okay, like this person kind of has a little bit of difference there, then move forward with it. But if they then go, and start confusing you even more, walk away, because it's not gonna, like, it's not going to change. Come
That's
into
what,
the.
so how do you know when you should walk away? Like, I think that's another question, a frequently asked question. How do you know if you're just triggered because you're in PMDD, or if this is something that's just not going to work for you, like at all? So you should just walk away, because it's like, is it me because I'm in PMDD, or is this just not the person for me?
Yeah, I think that that's a very personal question. I think it can't be answered in a generic way, I don't think. But I would say that also boils down to you doing a lot of work beforehand. Because, if you're, we know that with PMDD, that some women are going into, like, when I was really in the depth of my PMDD many years ago, it was like 10 days of hell, suicidal thoughts, triggers like left, right, and set, like every 10 minutes, someone's looking at me down the street and I'm triggered, like,
Yeah,
it's relentless. If you are in that place and you are single, be single. Like, in all honesty, like, you can choose to be in a relationship and maybe it will help in certain ways, but if you have that many triggers, look after yourself. Do what you do, the inner work first, get through some of this stuff, so that when you get into a situation where you're like, okay, I like this person, and there are some triggers, you already have an arsenal of tools to help you a bit more,
yeah,
so that you can
yeah.
then really look at it from a place of, I genuinely love myself. I know I have some challenges still, like, I know I'm going to get a little bit triggered in this, but if I know myself enough to know if this person's confusing me in the way they're kind of messaging, or if I'm trying to communicate, and we're not, because communication doesn't have to be about agreement, it just has to
Right.
be about understanding. You communicate. If you're seeing someone for 2 3 months and you're realizing their texting is really rubbish and it's confusing you and it's making you upset, and you're able to communicate that, and then they come back with, even if they don't agree with you, if they come back with, I understand how you feel. I'm not really a big texter, and that's probably not going to change because I'm not really great. But how can I kind of soothe you in
Yeah,
that?
because some people are really better in person. Like, I think that's very confusing because when you're texting, they may be like sporadic and all the things, but then when you see them in person, they're like, oh my gosh, and they're so attentive and and it's just like they just don't have the capacity. Or some people are FaceTime people where I've seen that where you're dating and they're like immediately wanting to FaceTime and you're like, whoa, like you need to make an appointment before you FaceTime me. Like some people are like, I don't like I'm not like, did
I
you,
love
they
that.
press a button, they're like, oh, are you seeing my face? Or like some people are just like on the phone where they just want to like talk all the time. Let's talk sending pictures. So I know when people are long distance, this is like a really big one where they're like, send pictures of you doing this and some like how do you feel? I know how I feel about like sending pictures. And I'm just like, it's well, I think if you're sending pictures and you're in the vicinity of the person, I think it's kind of weird. Like you could just see me in person and take a picture. But if you're like, oh, like because sending a picture when you're dating, it's like I just remember that when I was like a teenager, where they're like, send me a picture, but I feel
Yeah, it's
like it's
never been a thing
so
for me.
no, I just feel like like what are you doing with this picture? Like what do you?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I will say, especially because of the you know, what I experienced as someone kind of being groomed into a gang when I was younger. Like, firstly, I'm not really a technical person. Like, I went through a long time without even having a phone, so
Yeah,
it's not really my vibe. I also would be. I mean, are you on about just general pictures, or because I think when it comes to any sexual pictures. To be honest, I would it would be a big fat no for me unless you're in a really loving relationship. You are, like I said, I travel a lot, so I have been in long distance relationships and stuff, but I still wouldn't really send pictures
yeah,
because you don't, in all honesty, you don't know when things are going to go bad and how people will be when things go bad. Like I just wouldn't, it's just not something that I would do. And if it, I suppose if you do it, keep your head out of it. It'd be easier to just be on video. Just be on video
yeah.
if you're going to have a little bit of
I just
fun.
think I want a lot of individuals I feel like there's so much pressure in the modern day like how there's dating when you're on these apps and
Yeah,
and they're like oh send me like I just feel like I don't want individuals specifically when you're in PMDD like you feel like you don't know what's okay what's not okay. I just want you to know like you don't
yeah.
have to if it doesn't feel good to you don't do it like
Well,
don't
this is
feel pressure to do it. Go ahead.
yeah, and this is the thing. Like when you speak of pressure, okay, when we look at ourselves as an individual, just as a human being, and regardless of PMDD, the pressures that we're feeling are coming from the external and going to our internal world, and we're meeting them from the place of where we are in our internal world. Now, for myself at this point, if someone if I mean, I don't really use apps, and because I travel a lot, it's quite easy to meet people.
Yeah, yeah,
But I can understand it to a certain degree, people going on an app and someone saying that, but if you don't feel comfortable with it, then don't do it. And if someone then pressures you, then really are they the person for you?
exactly.
That's the thing. Again, I think that really a lot of this still goes back to, if you're feeling pressured, if you're still feeling like you're questioning these things, you need to go back to your inner work. And
Hmm.
I know it sounds so, people can hear that and be like, oh, I'm doing so much work on myself. But I think doing work on yourself isn't just about sitting and psychoanalyzing yourself. It's also about living for yourself, going exercising, doing things, and even exercise, it's not necessarily, you don't have to be a gym bunny. You can go to dance classes or start climbing or go for walks, find yourself, find what you enjoy, find what helps your PMDD, because if we're really looking at it, like when you really look at the science of PMDD, like most of the time we have traumas, and the traumas come from the brokenness from inside, and then they become physiological. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because we have the negative feedback loops. The negative feedback loops create the increase of cortisol. This then starts to affect our progesterone. We now lower in serotonin as well. So we need, the more we can do things that actually make us feel good, that's looking after ourselves. Like for myself, when I'm feeling low, one thing that always makes me feel good, I love children. The babies just bring me so, so much joy. They're
You're gonna
so,
be an amazing mom. I see that in you. Yeah. Yeah.
oh, thank you. But they do, though. Like, I think they really
Yeah.
remind me of God. They're just the essence of
The
God.
innocence is amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think so for me, it's like when I'm in a sad space, just being around children makes me feel happy. And that's the thing, it's finding what makes you happy because yes, being in a relationship is important. You know, we all want to find a sense of love, but we also have to understand that if we're looking at it from a mathematical perspective, because when you speak to men, men have a lot more of this kind
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
understanding
They're
of like
very
the
logical.
mathematics. Like they go to a place and it's like, well, statistically speaking, if I match with all these people and then this person, and in a way, we do have. I know us women, we like to romanticize things, and I am a total hopeless romantic. I really am, but we also have to understand that if we're going out to date again, the probability is that we're gonna meet some people that we like a bit, you know, and we're like, oh, nah. And then we're gonna meet some people maybe we really like, but it's not the right person. So we have to have the bandwidth of capacity to deal with our perceived rejection or perceived
Hmm.
letting down, sense of hopelessness of someone not coming. And the way that we do that is by cultivating things in our life that we enjoy, you know, like find, you know, if you like going for walks daily, if you like cooking, like find the things that you enjoy and start creating your own house internally, create your own peace internally so that when you do, and I'm not, you know, I don't want to sound pessimistic in that sense, but we have to come into reality. You know, we have
Yeah.
to realize that if you are going to start dating again, you're probably going to get hurt a little bit. You might not. You might be lucky and meet the right person straight away and everything falls into place. And you know, really happy for you if that is if that is your journey. That's wonderful. But if it's not and there are lessons to learn along the way, we need our tools. You know, we need, okay, we've gone on a date and this person maybe you was just really hoping that the date was going to go well and you just didn't really get along, and maybe if you don't have the tools, maybe that can devastate you because you've lost
Yeah.
hope. And now what we're going to do when we go home, okay, so now we need our tools. I'm going to give myself a hug, I'm going to run myself a nice bath, you know, oh, that didn't go very well, but maybe next time. We need that
Like,
mindset.
don't lose hope. I think what you're saying is so important because
Yeah,
when you get to a point where you get disappointed in the dating process and you start to demonize men and you start to say all men are the same. I'm going to have the same experience. I'm a very big proponent of words have power. So if you
yeah,
start speaking that over your life, you're calling it in because you're going to go on another date and you're just going to be waiting for that person to disappoint you. You're going to be waiting for that person to do something that's going to trigger you instead of
yeah,
taking each person that you're dating as a fresh start. That's the beautiful thing about it. When you're dating, you don't
yeah,
have any ties to one person. If you find out that they're triggering you beyond what you can manage, specifically when you're in PMDD, you can choose to let them go and not let them go in a bitter way. Not saying, oh, forget you and lash out at them. Just like bless them, send them on their way, and that's fine. But don't
yeah,
stay in a situation longer when you've gotten the red flag, you've gotten the
yeah,
neon flag. You know it's not going to work for
yeah,
you in PMDD.
yeah,
Please just take it and don't have that scarcity mindset that we talked about on the
yeah.
last episode. Know that if this person didn't work, there's someone else for you. You don't have to put all your eggs in one basket and think that
Mhm.
your worth is tied to this working. Because I feel like when you do that, you're forcing something. That means you're blinding yourself to a lot of things that could protect you from future hurts. Like they're just
Mhm.
like you said, when they do something that could be that could be consistently who they are. And so if you know that it's triggering you and you choose to stay with this person because you feel like you're never gonna find another person that you're gonna connect with in this way, then
Mm,
you're gonna miss out on somebody that doesn't trigger you in this way.
yeah.
And I really want to get into the last question that we have, and that is, how do you know when to tell the person that you're dating if you really like them, they're not triggering you,
Mm,
you really like them, that you have PMDD? Like, and I
mm,
know we talked about this earlier, but for me, I always say I don't start off dating someone and be like, "Hi, I'm Rose and I have PMDD," right?
mm,
Because I have had relationships in the past where PMDD was not a major issue at all.
mm,
I've had relationships where PMDD was an issue. And so
mm,
when I bring it up to the person that I'm dating is when they begin to trigger me when I'm in PMDD in a way that we now have to work together and navigate, but you cannot work together and navigate it if they don't even know that it exists. So now I
mm,
have to let them know, like, hey, I have this disorder, this is something that's triggering me, and kind of like go through that process. But I don't want you to scare people away, number one. And I don't want you to overthink it to where you're operating in a different persona because you're like, oh my gosh, they're going to see that I have PMDD. Like some people, I've had partners that didn't even recognize that I had PMDD because I used the tools on how to navigate it. And because when I did certain things that I needed to do for self-care and PMDD, it didn't trigger them. It didn't bother them. They were fine
mm,
with me taking time for myself because they wanted to take time for themselves. So it never really was an issue in the relationship. So that's when I feel like this is a time to talk about it when it becomes a problem in our specific relationship or our connection.
mm. Yeah, I think for it would be different for everyone. I think
Hmm.
again, it would be a personal kind of thing to mull over. But I think for myself, because my view on the diagnosis label
Hmm.
is that I don't really agree with labeling myself at this point in my life. I've kind of gone past that. However, I have had a lot of trauma, which does sometimes get triggered. Um, I think that what I would do is more discuss the on a personal note, I'd probably discuss it in relation to work because I work in this area.
Yeah.
But if I didn't, then it would be more discussing menstrual cycles, like as in discussing like the
So you're
fluctuations. But
easing them into it. Like they know you have a menstrual cycle, and then you're telling them that you have like an extra layer to your specific menstrual cycle.
not even necessarily that, because I also think that it comes to a point of healing where it is just the fluctuation. Like I say with clients, like the luteal phase is learning week. You're letting go of things, you're moving through things, and when we can come into that, like, because as well, I believe that triggers are a good thing because it's showing you where things are. Now in context there, when it comes to a person, if they're always triggering you and that's a different thing. But triggers in general are prodding pain. And if they're prodding pain, they're showing you what still needs to be healed. So in that context is good. And I think that more what I would discuss is the cyclical nature of a
Mm.
woman. And and I would allow it to be again, this is very, very personal. I generally tend to date very philosophical people where we have very
Uh,
deep conversations. So
yeah, we were
this
talking about Jordan Peterson before. Like,
oh yeah, yeah, Jordan Peterson is,
they would like
yeah, like,
dive into it and be like, let's talk all about it.
yeah, like I'm really into, many different philosophies and religions and walks of life. So I do tend to meet, that so that isn't a discussion because it wouldn't be like, oh, women bleed, because it's not about that. It's about the shifts of
Yeah.
and it's about the shifts of nature as well. So I would come at it from that way, to be honest. And in all honesty, there wouldn't really be a time frame that I would put on it. it would be more of an organic flow
Mm,
because again, I still feel that the huge thing is that you do and you should, if you really want a relationship that is going to last a long time and there isn't a trauma bond fundamentally, you should get through a lot of your layers of healing first. A
yeah,
lot of us with PMDD have a lot of past trauma. We have a lot of self-loathing. We have high levels of guilt that we consistently feel. And if you're going into the relationship where you already have all of that just by yourself, there's a lot to take into it's a lot of baggage to take
yeah,
into a relationship. And I'm not saying this with everyone. Sometimes being in a relationship can help it, um but in my personal experience, it's very much important that you deal with yourself first and then go into the relationship where it is, if you're at a 10 and you're triggered from day like for 10 days, get lower that, move through it first, start healing, doing some work, putting some scaffolding up, getting the tools so that you're already in a place where it's like, I do love myself right now. So that again, even if you do decide to have that conversation, because if I did have a genuine conversation, the conversation would be more, I've been through a lot of trauma, and
mm,
that is going to affect me a little bit in this relationship because I find men scary sometimes, and I push people away, and I don't want to do that, but sometimes it happens, and we're going to have to work through this, you know.
yeah.
But for me to do that, I have to love myself enough to know that they could reject that, you
That's
know.
so hard. I think that's so hard for people who are. I had and I'm really channeling like a client that I had where they did kind of pour themselves out and say
Yeah,
like this is and like on a traumatic level, like say what their traumas was, what they've
yeah.
been through, all these things, and the other person literally created a scenario because they called me like in tears. They literally created a scenario where the relationship ended. So, for example, whatever the scenario was, it didn't constitute the relationship ending. But after they heard everything that the person told them, they created a scenario, and then all of a sudden they weren't speaking anymore. And it's like, oh, I'm not speaking to you because of this thing. But it wasn't really about that thing. It was about once they opened up and said what their traumas were, it was too much for the other person to handle. And my client was like broken because they had been so vulnerable, been so open, and thought that they were going to be embraced because before they told them this information, they were embraced and like they were the best thing since sliced bread. And the person was like adoring them. And then all of a sudden they open themselves up. And I think it scares people that it can scare people. That,
Yeah,
that level of vulnerability, some people can't handle because they don't know what it can look like.
yeah. I have a lot to say on that. Like, as I have been through a lot of sexual trauma, and in the past, I have been very forthcoming
Yeah.
in that. I think I think that it is hard for people to handle, and I think that it, it's hard for people to know what to do with it. And
Mhm.
I can imagine that your client afterwards felt a sense of, I'm too much,
Yes.
it's my fault.
Yes.
And the truth is, it's not that you're too much, it's just some people don't know how to handle it, and this is why doing the work first is so important. Because it's funny actually, because my mum is kind of the polar opposite to me, and she would always tell me when I was younger, don't tell people anything, don't tell people anything. And it was like, because she would always tell me that, I went the other way and wear my heart on my sleeve, and got really really actually quite manipulated and abused because of it, because I was so forthcoming, and people do use that against you, and it is a dance. I think when you are coming into something, you have to kind of put yourself in a position of like, I've been through a lot, but maybe you don't share the ins and outs of it quite. So because you also have to remember that this is your precious pain. you know? And yes, maybe even when you've did like, I've done a lot of work on my pain, but nevertheless, it's still my pain, it's still
Yeah.
my past is still my past. And even though I can talk about it quite freely now, like it was me and I did go through that pain. And for me to go into a situation where I tell a guy that I like that and him to do that, it is still gonna hurt me. So we
Hmm.
have to remember our own emotional deposit,
Yeah.
like with your client. It's like this is precious. This is still, it's like a pearl. Even though it's pain, it's still a pearl. And what you're looking for in that is someone to meet you in this place of your pain and love you in it. But it's a way of doing it as well. It's a way of doing it that's delicate. And if you have low, say if we have like if we're looking at it from like a kind of 0 to 100, like 100 is everything. It's like if we're in this place where they're embracing us and then all of a sudden we give them 100, it's like, and
Yeah.
it's not necessarily, oh, I don't like you. It's, I don't know if I can handle this. Like, what if I
Yeah.
hurt this person even more? Like, there's so many layers, and it's not you. It's them not knowing what to do with it as well. So it's kind of like, let's give them 10% and be like, okay, that I've been through quite a lot of pain in my life, and see how they respond. Like, we have to slowly deposit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think what stops a lot of us from doing that, and definitely what was my experience for a long time, is that deep down, the reason I was telling them my pain is because I wanted comfort from it. I still wanted someone
Exactly.
to save me. I still wanted to tell them and them
Exactly.
to rescue me. And
Yeah.
that's where we get so hurt, because the real reason we're doing it isn't really to just share it
To
for the sake of
inform
sharing.
them, it's almost to get some kind of response that is comforting, like in
Yeah.
return. And but I also think you want to know if you really like a person that you're with someone who would do that for you, who is going to
Yeah.
comfort you through that. Like I really leaned into a nurturing partner
Mm.
recently where I was just like, I want someone that if I cry and tell them about my trauma or whatever, that they're going to comfort me. They're not going to judge me. They're not going to like, make me feel like it's an inconvenience to me meeting their needs. Like they're going to love me more for what I've been through and
Mm.
not judge me and make me feel bad like I need to hide it from them. Like I need to patch myself up before I
Mm.
present myself to them. Like I need to like work on myself so much that my trauma doesn't exist because at the end of the day it's part of you. It's part of your journey. So you don't want to feel like when I start to date, I need to forget everything that I've been through and that's when I'm ready to date. It's like it's gonna stick with you, but it's gonna stick with you in a way where you're going to embrace it because you've healed from it. You're going to know how you've evolved because of that, because there's so much
Yeah.
growth that comes from the trauma that we've been through that I don't ever want people to feel ashamed of it and feel like,
No.
oh, I'm only going to be ready to date when I can just pretend like it never happened to me.
No, and that's the thing. It's not at all that, because it is a part of you. It's a part of who you are. It's more about protection.
Yeah.
It's you being able to know that you have been through a lot, and yes, you should be able to kind of put your guard down, put the shield down, but you also want to be able to protect yourself as well, because you don't want to go into the relationship thinking that they're your savior. You have to
Yeah.
go into the relationship with like, I want to meet you in this place that I have done a lot of healing, but I'm still in pain. Like the truth is, if when we're single and when we're by ourselves, we can deal with a certain level of things and we can heal to a certain level. But when we're then in a relationship, more things will come out.
Yes.
So it's more a
Yes.
case of actually, it's a cushioning. Like the healing that you're doing before you get into a relationship is the cushioning, because you might be in that relationship and they might be able to embrace you, and then you might split up. And I'm not, again, I don't want to say it in a pessimistic way, but it could happen. Like they might be beautiful at embracing you in that place, but you might also not be compatible in other ways, or you might be leading down wrong places. And if you have come into that relationship with that need for them to be your savior, when that then breaks, there is such a level of pain that, and that's the bit that we're trying to cushion, that yes, you have been through pain, and yes, the person that you're with should be able to embrace your pain to a high degree, but you are still a whole person that has the tools and the love and the self-acceptance to know that you don't need to merge with this person. This person isn't the savior of your pain.
Yeah.
You are still, you're able to embrace it, but you're already learning to accept it yourself.
Yeah. I think that's
Yeah.
beautiful because it's an acceptance of the process and not feeling like you're a failure because it didn't work out. I know I have so many individuals that come to me and they say I gave it on my all and it didn't work out, and with dating things, it's trial and error. It really
Yeah.
is, and it's not fail, pass fail, pass fail. It's a learning experience, and I think you can gain something from everyone that you're dating. I thank people, whether I don't like literally thank them, but if I've come across them and I've like that would be weird. I'm like,
Imagine it. Thank
thank you.
you.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for your time. Like took a like, what the heck? But I have a level of gratitude when I'm journaling about my experience with people and learning about them, because it is such a thing that they've opened themselves up to me. Like it's a
Yeah.
privilege for someone to open themselves up to you and for you to open yourselves up to them, because they don't have to. Nobody has to. And if they're
Mm,
choosing to, they're choosing to put themselves out there. And if it works, it's great. And if it doesn't, just look. Just it's like shopping at this store, and we have in America called Ross. It's like there's good stuff on the rack and then there's crap. You just search for the good stuff and you walk away with that. But if you walk away with the crap that you experience, like it's your choice of what you take away from every dating experience. You can walk away and be bitter because it didn't
mm,
work out and be like, they did this to me, they did this to me, they did. And then the lesson is left on the rack. You leaving the store without the actual lessons that you could have learned. So just
yeah.
hone in on what you could have learned from the person, even if they weren't like graciously teaching you a lesson, if they were teaching you what not to do, be grateful for that so that you don't repeat it with someone else.
And that again really goes back to the doing the work on yourself first, because if you're already just by yourself very much struggling with having a negative view of life and struggling with how you feel, then going into a relationship, you're really putting yourself in this place of, this person is going to make me feel better, and then
Mhm.
if they don't, you're not just in the devastation you was in before, you're far more plummeted
Yeah,
down, because you're also now withdrawing from oxytocin a lot of the time as well, and love, withdrawing from a sense of physical love is one of the most painful experience. They say that it's as painful as coming off of heroin. So
exactly.
don't
Yeah,
really don't underestimate that feeling of being lovesick. And that is again why it is so important for us. Like, I broke my ankle a few years ago, and before I had to go for surgery, and before I went for surgery, I went into prehab. And the reason you do prehab is that when you then come out, you're going to go kind of further down. So you want to lift yourself up to a higher place that you don't go down as far. And again, it sounds so pessimistic, but it's because you do have to come into the place of like of reality, that you're coming, if you really, we're not children, we're not coming into, yes, like romance is a thing and it's lovely to kind of be in that place, but when you're really looking for that commitment as well and that kind of consistency, we're not just looking for oxytocin high and
yeah,
a rush, we're looking for something with longevity, and we're really trying to put ourselves in this place of like, could I genuinely see myself having a relationship with this person? If you want a family, having a family with this person, like going through struggles with this person, like is this person someone I feel I can communicate with? And for us to go into the dating pool in that way is a different thing of just meeting someone that we're attracted to and being like, oh, like hello, let's have a
yeah,
little,
yeah,
fling or love affair. Like it's really coming into the place with eyes wide open and being able, and I think that you really do have to come you really have to try to come into that place with an undefended heart. And to do that, you have to have a level of of strength and healing that allows you to be more authentic.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. I'm looking forward to going in depth with all of this in our dating course, dating with
Mm,
PMDD. I'm really excited because I feel like so much is going to be uncovered with everyone's dating experience, and this is just
yeah,
the tip of the iceberg. So all of the things by the time you see this is going to be in the show notes about how to sign up for our program, about
yeah,
dating with PMDD. We'll be able to address your individual dating chronicles everything that you're been struggling with, that you're thinking about, your frequently asked questions.
mm,
But dating with PMDD is not for the faint of heart. Like there are strategic things that you need to know, and we are here to advise you on those things based off of our expertise and our personal experiences. So I'm
yeah.
looking forward to that. So make sure that you sign up for dating with PMDD. And until next time, we got this.
We've got this.
I hope this PMDD episode helped you and your partner in your struggles within your relationship. And if this is something that you know that you need help with and you need further support, individualized support, make sure you're going to inlovewithpmdd.com and you're getting those private sessions to really work through what you're going through in your relationship, specifically in regards to PMDD. And also, I want you to leave a 5-star written review on Apple Podcasts. What this does is it helps other PMDD sufferers and partners find this show that can help them get these free PMDD relationship tools. I remember what it felt like to not know that there were tools out there specifically for PMDD relationships. So I want to make sure that you are sharing these tools with others, share them on your social media, share them with people that you know that are also struggling in their PMDD relationships. Until next episode, this is Dr. Rose, your PMDD relationship psychotraumatologist. One more thing, I almost forgot. I now have the Fresh Start PMDD Partners Workbook. What this workbook can do is if you've had past traumatic experiences with your partner, past fights, past arguments, and they keep coming up every single month in PMDD, I created a Fresh Start Workbook so that you can deal with all of the traumatic experiences that have happened in the past in PMDD rage and all of these things so you can stop going through the same cycle again and again and again. So get that workbook. It comes with a video episode of the actual podcast that I recorded on getting a fresh start in your PMDD relationship. So you're not continuing the same cycle again and again and again. So make sure that you get that workbook. And if you need those individualized counseling sessions, you know where to go, inlovewithpmdd.com. Until next time, we got this. Love you.